What if I told you that the root of your suffering might not be in the pain itself, but in who is sitting at the center of your life? Have you noticed how everything seems to fall apart when God becomes a detail instead of the foundation? You try, you restart, you plan, but peace doesn't come. The miracle doesn't happen and things remain out of place. That's no coincidence. It's spiritual. Life only aligns when the heart aligns with heaven. And maybe, just maybe, the powerful prayer that will unlock what's stuck begins with a simple change, removing the self from the throne and letting Jesus truly reign. Some people ask for direction, but refuse to let go of the steering wheel. They want to hear God's voice, but won't silence their own anxiety. The Bible teaches that when God is at the center, even chaos becomes a path. But when we place faith as a last resort, the spiritual realm shuts down. It's not about religion, it's about surrender. It's not about praying a lot, it's about praying right. Today you'll understand what it means, practically, to place God at the center of your routine, your decisions, your family, your emotions. And when that happens, what once seemed impossible starts moving in the unseen. In this video, we're going to walk through 8 spiritual truths that will open your eyes and reposition your heart. You'll understand why your spiritual life feels stuck, why your plans don't flow, and what truly activates God's miracles. Don't wait for another sign. This is God's message for you today. He's calling you back to the center. And when that happens, even the driest deserts bloom, spiritual battles turn into victories, and His promises begin to be fulfilled with precision. God's timing has already started, and He is speaking to you now. Nothing changes on the outside when the internal order remains out of place. And the truth is simple. God will never be just an accessory in your schedule. He is either at the center or every other area will continue in disorder. The Bible teaches that everything placed after God finds its proper place. But when He is left aside, chaos takes over. So before trying to fix your life, align your heart. Start with the root, your relationship with God. Faith must lead, not follow behind your own plans. Many people are exhausted trying to fix everything with human strength, while heaven is simply waiting for one repositioning. My child, put me at the center. It's not about lack of effort, it's about the lack of spiritual priority. When prayer comes after anxiety, when the Word of God is only read in moments of crisis, the miracle might come. But not in the way you imagined. God honors order, and that order begins with Him. There's no use asking for direction if you're still gripping the steering wheel with your own hands. Saying God comes first is easy. The hard part is living like it's true. The center of your life is revealed in practice, in your decisions, in what occupies your mind, in how you respond to fear. If your day starts without prayer, if your choices don't go through the filter of faith, maybe God is still only on the edge. Placing Jesus at the center changes everything. It's what turns despair into peace, failed plans into purpose, and empty prayers into powerful spiritual warfare. Want a starting point? Make small changes that reveal your priorities. Trade the first hours of your day for time with God. Replace complaints with faithful prayer. Let the Bible guide your routine before fear takes over your mindset. These small actions speak volumes in heaven. When you position yourself with faith, the spiritual world responds. And it's in that silent movement that God's signs begin to manifest, not with noise, but with peace and inner alignment that only those who've lived it can understand. It's precisely when God is at the center that you stop trying to control everything. And interestingly, it's in that surrender that true control is restored, but not in your hands, in His. God's timing begins to operate, His miracles find an open path, and even spiritual battles shift direction. Because now He is leading, And if that already confronts you, wait until you understand the power that exists when you begin to hear the voice of God clearly, even on the days when heaven seems silent. A life without spiritual direction is like sailing the open sea without a compass, and the most dangerous part isn't being lost. It's not even realizing you are. When God becomes the priority, the heart stops chasing empty promises and starts discerning the true signs of God. The Bible talks about being a lamp to our feet and a light to our path, but that light only shines when there is surrender. Many keep praying for answers, but ignore the first instruction. Seek His presence before the solution. Direction comes with intimacy, and intimacy begins with priority. Some people wake up asking God to bless their day but make decisions that leave Him out. They want a miracle but refuse to release control. They crave peace but negotiate their principles. That's not faith. That's convenience disguised as prayer. When God's purpose becomes the priority, even His no becomes protection. Even detours become shortcuts to a safer destination. Aligning with heaven is not about getting everything you want. It's trusting that God knows exactly what's behind what you don't understand yet. God is not interested in being a detail in your planning. He wants to be the center of your foundation. Have you ever seen a house built without a foundation? It might stand for a while, but it will collapse at the first gust of wind. The same happens to a life without Jesus as the cornerstone. Religion might teach you rituals, but only a relationship with God brings direction. And it all starts in the small things. In what you choose to consume, in the friendships you keep, in the time you dedicate to the Bible, and the sincerity of your prayer. Have you ever wondered why some people remain at peace even in chaos? It's not luck. It's spiritual priority. They decided to hear God's voice above the world's noise. They chose faith as their foundation and obedience as their answer. If you still feel trapped in decisions that don't fit, maybe it's time to stop and ask, Lord, what are you trying to show me? Through this, that question changes everything. Because when God is the priority, even crooked paths begin to straighten out. Spiritual alignment doesn't come through haste, but through consistency. It's a daily process of putting God before everything, before your phone, before your work, before your worries, and the more He is sought, the clearer the path becomes. The direction you so desperately need isn't in another human opinion, but in the depth of your surrender. And when you truly understand that, something inside you shifts. Then comes the question that transforms everything. What happens when faith becomes a practical decision? The greatest mistake of those who have faith is trying to rush what only blooms in the right season. God does not operate under human pressure. He operates under eternal purposes. That's why so many pray for miracles and become frustrated when the answer seems like silence. The truth is that the miracle is not manifested in the noise of anxiety, but in the rest found in His presence. A powerful prayer is not the one that demands what it wants, but the one that trusts even when it doesn't understand. And this trust is not built overnight. It grows through daily intimacy with God in the secret place. Jesus never rushed. Even in the face of Lazarus' death, He waited 2 days before taking action. Why? Because God's timing is pedagogical. It teaches, shapes, and aligns. Often, what you call delay is actually preparation for something far greater than you asked for. And while you cry out, heaven is already working, just not in the way you expect. Miracles do not follow human schedules. They follow the rhythm of presence. And those who dwell in presence learn to discern. What seems like delay is actually divine precision. There's a big difference between wanting God out of need and seeking Him out of intimacy. Many turn to prayer only when the pain becomes unbearable, treating faith like an emergency button. But the greatest miracles in the Bible happened to those who walked with God long before the crisis. It's not about repeating words, it's about cultivating presence. It is in the consistency of the secret place that the impossible becomes natural. The faith that moves mountains begins with invisible habits that no one sees, but heaven fully recognizes. Want to see miracles happen? Start prioritizing time with God as if it were the air you breathe. It's not about quantity, but about quality. Take 10 minutes and read a psalm. Whisper a sincere prayer before bed. Thank Him before you ask. What transforms isn't the ritual, it's the surrender. And the closer you draw to Jesus, the more your soul learns to rest, even when everything around you screams otherwise. Presence doesn't rush time. It teaches you how to live each season with wisdom, trust, and unwavering faith. The presence of God doesn't only change what's outside, it transforms what's inside. And curiously, when the heart changes, the miracle may not even need to happen the way you imagined, because now the result no longer matters as much as the peace that arrived before it. And it is in this spiritual maturity that faith becomes unshakable, when you pray not only for God to do something, but for Him to dwell within you. And when you begin to live this way, a powerful question arises. What if the greatest miracle is not what you expect, but what He is already doing in you? The kind of faith that truly transforms doesn't emerge from grand stages or loud declarations. It is born in the silent decisions no one sees. It's when you choose to forgive without being asked, to give thanks before receiving, to obey even when everything in you wants to give up. These are the quiet acts that build an unshakable faith. The Bible is full of examples like this, like David, who was anointed king yet continued to shepherd sheep in the fields as if nothing had changed. The true spiritual battle is won in those private moments where the only audience is God, and it's there that heaven moves. Many fall into a subtle deception, waiting to feel faith only when everything starts to make sense. But the kind of faith that strengthens you is precisely the one that rises when everything feels uncertain. It's not about what you feel, it's about what you choose. And that choice is made in the secret place. When you close your eyes to pray even in exhaustion, when you open the Bible even without understanding everything, when you keep seeking God's voice amidst the noise of your own soul. These decisions shape the spirit and reprogram the heart to trust beyond logic. The world today celebrates results, but heaven celebrates process. God is not in a hurry to take you to the destination if your heart is not yet ready to sustain it. The silent choices that seem irrelevant to others are honored by the one who searches the heart. And when He finds someone who is faithful in little, He Himself opens the doors to much. That's why you must never underestimate what you do in anonymity. The greatest miracles of God are born in hearts that choose obedience before any evidence appears. Want a practical example? When someone hurts you and everything in you wants to strike back, but instead you choose to be silent and pray, that is faith in action. When you say no to an opportunity that looks great but violates your values, that is listening to the voice of God. A powerful prayer is not built on elegant words, but on a posture that chooses the right path, even when it's the hardest. So how do you strengthen your faith? By feeding it with consistent, honest choices. There is no solid faith built on spiritual incoherence. You either trust or you control. Both can't coexist. The beauty of practical faith is that it doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself in the fruit. And as you walk this path of conscious choices, you begin to realize you're not alone. God is speaking to you constantly through the smallest details. And with every obedient step, He confirms, I'm here, I'm guiding you, I'm working. But the journey doesn't stop there, because even with active faith, there will still be days when God's silence tests your convictions. And it's in that moment that many give up. And will you keep going? The truth is that the impossible only remains. Impossible until someone decides to align themselves with heaven. And this alignment doesn't begin with the miracle. It begins in the mind. When you change the way you perceive God, you begin to see that what seemed closed was simply a divine pause to reposition your path. The Bible reveals that every time someone aligned themselves with God's direction, the atmosphere responded to their faith. Moses raised his staff and the sea parted. Joshua prayed and the sun stood still. Hannah wept in the temple and a barren womb became a living promise. Many believe faith is just waiting passively, but true faith always requires movement. God is not pleased with inaction. He responds to active surrender. And this surrender begins with humility, acknowledging that without Him your strength has a limit. When you kneel before His will and say, "Let your will be done, not mine," heaven moves. Aligning with God is like tuning a radio. Suddenly, His voice becomes clear. The earth unfolds, and the impossible begins to respond to your spiritual posture. Do you want to see real change? Start on the inside. Reevaluate your routine. How is your prayer life? Have you been seeking the Word of God for me today, or merely surviving on autopilot? Alignment requires priority, and priority demands sacrifice. Swapping 10 minutes of social scrolling for 10 minutes of powerful prayer might seem small, but in the kingdom, it's monumental. It's in these details that God sees the sincerity of your heart and releases signs, sometimes silent, sometimes astonishing. Don't assume that alignment will always be comfortable. Often God will remove things you desperately want to give you what you truly need. And in that process, it's normal to feel fear, insecurity, even the desire to turn back. But when you keep trusting, even in the dark, that's when God's promises begin to come to life. He never forgets a single prayer made in faith. Even if you can't see it yet, there is a spiritual war being fought on your behalf, orchestrated by a God who never loses battles. And it's in this place of surrender and obedience that miracles start to unfold so naturally you might not even realize when the shift began. You'll see doors opening, the right people arriving, burdens becoming lighter, because when God is at the center, chaos is brought into order, His timing prevails, and the impossible begins to lose its power. But even more profound than all of that is this: the transformation of who you are becoming in the process. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next topic. Many look at those who experience miracles and think, that person is lucky. But the truth is, miracles were never about luck. They are about position. Heaven responds to a heart that aligns, that surrenders, that remains silent when it wants to scream, that prays when no one is watching. The Bible shows this time and again. The paralyzed man wasn't just seen by Jesus, he was in the right place with the right faith. A miracle is God saying, "I saw your faithfulness in secret." And when heaven responds, no logic can explain it, only purpose can. If you want to see God's miracles, start asking different questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "Lord, what do you want to teach me through this?" The shift begins when you stop seeking only intervention and start seeking transformation. And transformation requires positioning. You cannot live like everyone else and expect God to act in extraordinary ways. The ordinary must be left behind. And faith, when practiced with courage, moves mountains, one at a time, with steps of obedience. Maybe you're waiting for a financial breakthrough, a healing, a reconciliation, or a divine answer. But before the miracle comes, God is interested in transforming your inner self. He's asking you today, are you ready to receive what you've prayed for? Because sometimes The greatest miracle is becoming the kind of person who can carry what once would have crushed you. That's why spiritual positioning isn't a ritual, it's a daily decision. Choosing to forgive, choosing to trust, choosing to obey even when everything screams otherwise. Want a simple example? Daniel chose not to defile himself with the king's delicacies. A seemingly small choice, but it changed history. So today, what have you been choosing in private? Has your faith shown itself through your actions, or is it still just in your words? Powerful prayer isn't just kneeling down, it's getting up with actions aligned to the faith you just declared. God is speaking to you in the details, and those who learn to hear his voice in the ordinary become unbeatable in spiritual warfare. And believe me, when heaven finds a willing heart, God's timing does not delay. He accelerates answers, realigns paths, and pours out promises. The signs of God start to appear in details you used to overlook. But all of this only happens for those who choose to leave autopilot behind and start living with purpose. Because in the end, miracles aren't a privilege for the few. They are a response for those who choose to walk by faith, even without understanding it all. And when that faith matures, it leads to an even greater certainty. Have you ever noticed how some places bloom without water, while others rot even beside a river? That happens in life too. The problem has never been the place, it's who is at the center. When God holds the central place in your heart, even the driest deserts become gardens. The Bible is clear. In the wilderness, God provided manna, water from a rock, guidance through cloud and fire. That proves wherever he is, there is provision. But when we try to do things our way, even fertile soil dries up. The secret isn't the setting, it's his presence. You might be going through a tough season, emotional battles, family struggles, financial pressure, dreams that feel far off. But if God is at the center, this is not your end. It's just a stage for the miracle. Often, the desert is not punishment, it's training. God uses emptiness to teach us that what we want is not always what we need. And more importantly, that even when everything is missing, he is still enough. Jesus overcame the wilderness with the word, and that same word is what will sustain you now. You know what? Keeps many from seeing flowers in the desert. Hurry, they want to escape fast without learning what they were supposed to. But when you seek God's purpose, you start to see beauty even in the thorns. Powerful prayer isn't just crying out for change. It's having discernment to see God working while nothing seems to be happening. That's the place where your faith grows. That's where you learn to hear God's voice clearly. And whoever learns to hear in the desert won't get lost when they enter the promise. So if everything feels hard, if heaven seems silent, ask yourself, is God still at the center of my life, or has he been replaced by fear, anxiety, or doubt? That answer changes everything, because where he reigns, there is direction. Where he rules, there is peace, even in the chaos. It's not about the absence of problems, but the presence of God. When Jesus entered the disciples' boat, the storm didn't vanish right away, but his presence calmed everything. That's what this is about, presence before breakthrough. And maybe right now, you're not just being prepared to leave your desert, but to become the answer in someone else's. God turns wounds into testimonies, scars into healing, and battles into wisdom. But it all starts when you decide to place him back at the center, and when that happens, the impossible loses its power, God's timing is revealed, and you understand that there's more, so much more, than you imagined. And it's this more that we'll talk about in the final topic, where everything begins to supernaturally align. How many times has God already begun something in your life and you didn't notice? Do you know why? Because many expect the miracle to come with fireworks, noise, and applause. But the most powerful miracles begin in silence. They start with the decision to forgive, to pray even when tired, to trust without seeing. They begin in the heart that says, "Thank you, Father," even before anything changes. God is speaking to you now, and maybe the greatest miracle isn't what He's doing around you. It's what He's transforming within you right at this moment. The Bible is full of stories like this. Elijah prayed, and 7 times his servant looked to the sky and saw nothing. But on the 8th time, he saw a cloud the size of a man's hand. Seems small. For those who have faith, it's enough to believe that the rain is coming. Maybe your miracle still looks like just a small cloud. A phone call, a dream, a quiet yes. But if God has begun, He will complete it. The problem is, many abandon the field before the harvest. And heaven only finishes what you have faith to carry until the end. So if you've been praying, crying, fasting, and feel like God is silent, pay attention to the details. Powerful prayer often makes no noise, but it produces transformation. A heart that is broken before Him is already an answer. A peace that suddenly arrives in the middle of pain is already a miracle. A no that protects you from something worse is already deliverance. God's timing never fails, but He wants you to learn how to recognize His hand even when it's invisible to everyone else. Mature faith sees promises before they appear. And do you want to know the secret? Gratitude in advance. When you give thanks for what you don't see yet, you are saying, "I trust you," and that trust moves heaven. It's like the centurion who said to Jesus, "Just say the word." He didn't ask for proof, he didn't demand signs, he simply believed, and Jesus responded with an instant miracle. That's the kind of faith God is looking for. Simple, surrendered, bold. The spiritual realm responds to faith, not to anxiety. If you want to experience God's miracles, posture your heart to thank Him before you receive. Now stop and look around you. How many miracles have already started and you just haven't noticed? The breath you take, the protection you never saw, the process God is orchestrating in silence. Maybe the miracle you've been waiting for isn't coming, maybe it's already happening. And all that's missing is for you to recognize it, believe it, and keep walking in faith. Because those who walk with Jesus know the best is yet to come. And in the next step, we'll bring all of this together in a powerful closing that will speak directly to your soul. Now that you've walked through each of these truths, pause and reflect. What is still sitting on the throne of your heart? Is it fear, anxiety, the desire to control everything by yourself? Putting God at the center is not just a Christian cliché. It's a radical act of faith. It means admitting that you can't do it alone and that you need the direction of someone greater, wiser, eternal. God doesn't want to be just another part of your life. He wants to be the center that holds everything together. And maybe, just maybe, that's the missing step for the miracle to start manifesting in your home, your heart, your path. Have you truly let Jesus lead, or have you only been using Him as emotional support in the hard times? Real faith demands surrender, and surrender begins when you kneel in prayer and stand up in obedience. Think about it. What areas of your life haven't been fully handed over yet? Where is your ego still louder than God's will? Don't ignore this calling. God is speaking to you. Spiritual battles are won in secret, but victories are revealed in public. Today could be the beginning of an entirely new life if you choose to trust Him for real. If this message spoke to your heart, let God move starting now. Write in the comments, "I put God at the center," and declare it with faith. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this word from God today. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. We post new videos every day with messages that strengthen your faith, activate God's promises, and help you hear His voice even in the midst of chaos. Subscribe and turn on notifications to keep receiving messages that build your faith. Leave a like and share this message with someone who needs it. Comment below, "I put God at the center," and let your faith be seen.